starting the country at number 10. And that country is India. And this may come as a surprise to many of you because India sort of tends to straddle the fence between support for Israel and support for Palestine. Either way though, India recognized Israel in the 1950s, but they didn't form any bilateral ties with Israel until the 1990s, early 1990s. And after the liberalization of India, the diplomatic ties really began to be established. India became the biggest importer for arms from Israel, but to maintain the diplomacy, whenever an Indian delegate, for example, used to visit Israel, he would visit Palestine during the same visit. However, India's current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, when he visited Israel in 2017, he was actually the first ever Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel, but didn't visit Palestine on the same trip. The country at number 9 is Greece. Several reports are actually calling Greece Israel's unlikely friend. Although Greece was once anti-Israel, Israel and Greece recently signed a defense deal worth around 1.2 billion pounds. Greece and Israel today enjoy excellent diplomatic relationships, and they actually consider each other allies. Both countries are partners in the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, or the OSCE for short, and they're also members of the Union for the Mediterranean, the World Trade Organization, and other organizations. Next up, we have Denmark. Denmark voted for the partition of Palestine in the year 1947 and supports Israel in the United Nations. Denmark has an embassy in Israel, and Israel has an embassy in Copenhagen, Denmark, which is the capital. And this has been established since the year 1949. Denmark recognized and established diplomatic relations with Israel on February 2nd, 1949. Germany is also another country that supports Israel. The German government spokesman Stefan Seibert, he said this in a recent statement. This violence cannot be justified by anything. Israel has the right to defend itself against these attacks within the framework of self-defense. So yes, Israel and Germany are allies. However, some say that this relationship is really one-sided because Germany has given Israel reparation money because of certain events in the past. Also, many powerful military equipment like the Dolphin II submarines. But what does Israel give Germany? Nothing really. Italy comes in at number 6. Italy recognized Israel on February 8th, 1949, and Italy also has an embassy in Tel Aviv, as well as 2 consulate generals in West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem, and 4 honorary consulates in Beersheba, Eilat, Haifa, and also Nazareth. And Israel has an embassy in Rome, Italy. Matteo Salvini, who is the head of Italy's Northern League Party and the country's former deputy prime minister, he made headlines recently after he expressed support for Israel on Twitter. This went viral, and this was despite him and his family being threatened because of their stance. Number 5, we have the country of China. China did not establish normal diplomatic relations with Israel until the year 1992. And since then, Israel and China have developed increasingly close relationships when it comes to the economy, military, as well as technology. As a matter of fact, China has become Israel's 3rd largest trading partner globally and the largest trading partner in East Asia. The next country at number 4 doesn't come as a surprise. We have the country of Canada. Since its founding in the year 1948, Canada has supported Israel and its right to live in peace and security with its neighboring countries. Canadian support of Israel includes arms sales, as well as a free trade agreement, security forces collaboration, diplomatic visits, and other forms of diplomatic and economic relations. Canada is also in favor of a 2-state solution, and it was said on May 12, 2021 by Marc Garneau, who is Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Canada is committed to the goal of a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East, including the creation of a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with Israel. Canada reiterates its call for the immediate de-escalation of tensions and an end to the violence. Moving on to number 3, we have Australia. Israel and Australia have had diplomatic relations since the Australian government recognized Israel on January 28, 1949. And then almost 20 years after that, the Liberal Country Party coalition supported Israel during and after the 1967 Six-Day War. The Australian government is considering strengthening its trade relations with Israel in hopes that such a deal would boost defense, cybersecurity, as well as innovation. And if you take a look, trade between the countries is already worth about $1.3 billion, with Australian exports to Israel worth about $345 million and imports worth about $1.02 billion. France comes in next at number 2. France is one of the first countries to recognize the new state of Israel and establish diplomatic relations as early as 1949, so right from the very beginning. For decades now, France has been advocating Israel's rights to existence and also live in peace and security, and it also continues to advocate for its full membership in the community of sovereign nations. French President Emmanuel Macron, he affirmed his, quote, unwavering attachment to Israel's security. And President Macron's administration has recently been facing a lot of criticism for its stance that appears to be very anti-Palestine. So they're facing a lot of criticism for their refusal or apparent refusal to condemn anything Israel is doing. And of course, at number 1, we have the country of the United States of America. And this goes back to the very beginning. The former US President Harry Truman was the first world leader to recognize Israel when it was created in the year 1948. So yeah, the United States led the pack in the recognition of Israel. The United States provided Israel $3.8 billion in military aid recently, and Israel also benefits from around $8 billion in American loan guarantees. Both countries, you would say, have common enemies, and the United States gives Israel their military technology and trade, as well as intelligence exchange between the CIA in the United States and Mossad in Israel. The current US President Joe Biden spoke recently with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he said the following words: "My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory." So of course, based on those statements, we see that the United States continuously and will continue, it seems, to support Israel. The Israeli Defense Force was founded in 1948, and there's 3 service branches: the Israeli Army, the Israeli Air Force, and the Israeli Navy. From the earlier part of the 20th century, Israel has committed the best of its people to its armed forces. They have created very fantastic soldiers, sailors, and pilots, and the IDF, or the Israeli Defense Force, are one of the best defense forces in the entire world. Through a vigorous recruitment process and training and retention process, they have been able to build one of the most competent and capable defense forces in the world. But did you know that in Israel, both men and women have to be part of the military? In fact, Israel is the only country in the world that maintains obligatory military service for women. Although men need to serve for longer, 32 months compared to women who serve for 24 months. And these men and women who make up the IDF are some of the most highly trained in the world. Since it was founded in 1948, the IDF helped Israel win the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. And that war in Israel was known as the War of Independence. Israel also has one of the highest recruitment rates in the world. About 80% of the people who they summon actually end up serving. Now here's some statistics to break down what their military looks like. Well, first, Israel's population is just over 8 million people. And out of that, their available manpower is 3.6 million people. And their total military personnel sits at 718,250. And Israel's active personnel sits at 168,250. And in their reserve, they have 550,000 reserve personnel. Now, while the size of the Israeli Defense Forces active frontline personnel is pretty small, especially when you compare it to other regions surrounding Israel, such as Egypt, which is at 468,500 active frontline personnel. Turkey at over 400,000, as well as Iran at over 545,000. Israel is actually praised for being able to quickly mobilize their personnel in a very short period of time. Now, moving on to their air power, their total aircrafts are 652. They have a total of 143 helicopters, and transport aircrafts are 101. In terms of their army strength now, Israel has 2,620 combat tanks. Their armored fighting vehicles sits at 10,185. They got 48 rocket projectors as well as 300 towed artillery. And then when we examine the Navy of Israel, their total naval assets is at 65. They have 3 corvettes and 6 submarines. And their defense budget is $15.5 billion US. So with a total population of over 8 million people, Israel devotes a considerable portion of their GDP towards their defense budget, and that percentage was at 5.38% in the year 2017. Israel also spends far more on its defense budget than any other Middle Eastern country, even more than Iran and Turkey, who are military powerhouses. However, more money spent on the defense means less for other needs in the country like education, health, and infrastructures. And in recent years, Israel's defense spending has been growing and increasing by about 4 billion Israeli shekels a year, which is about 1.16 billion US dollars. Now, Israel has been locked in conflict with neighboring Palestine for years. It's like this dispute will never ever end. And the big question is, who owns the capital of Jerusalem, Israel or Palestine? Well, US President Donald Trump boasted before his election that he could actually help broker a peace deal between the nations of Israel and Palestine. But recently, Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, reversing a lot of decades of US policy, but even though both Israel and Palestine claim it as their capital. However, the United Nations did reject this, so yeah, Jerusalem is still up for grabs. But despite this ongoing conflict, Israel's defense force is not gonna go down easily. Israel is in 17th position on the scale of top military powers of the world. This ranking does not only rely on the total number of weapons which are available to one nation, but rather focuses on weapon diversity within the total numbers of weapons available, and is based on 3 things: military might, international influence, and international alliances. The Israeli Defense Force, as they're called, or simply IDF, was founded in 1948, and it's the only military wing of the Israeli security forces. The service branches are the Israeli Army, the Israeli Air Force, and the Israeli Navy. Now, the IDF is headed by its Chief of General Staff, who's known as the Ramatkal, and he's subordinate to the Defense Minister of Israel, Lieutenant General. For the early half of the 20th century, Israel has committed the best of its people to the armed forces. They have created fantastic soldiers, sailors, and pilots, and the Israeli Defense Forces are one of the most intense defense forces in the world. Through rigorous recruitment, training, and retention process, they have been able to build one of the most competent and capable defense forces in the world. But did you know that in Israel, both men and women must do military service? In fact, Israel is the only country in the world that maintains obligatory military service for women. Although men need to serve for longer, about 32 months compared to women who serve 24 months, these men and women who make up the IDF are some of the most highly trained in the world. Now, as I mentioned, the IDF was founded in 1948, in the month of May to be exact, by Israel's then Defense Minister David Ben-Gurion, and the IDF helped Israel win the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, known there as the War of Independence. Israel also had one of the highest recruitment rates in the world. Some 80% of those who received summons served in the military. Now let's take a look at some of the technical statistics of Israel's defense force. Their available manpower is 3.6 million. Now their total military personnel sits at 615,000. They have 170,000 active personnel and 445,000 reserve personnel. Now, while the size of the standing army of the IDF is small when you compare it to other nations like Egypt and Turkey, Saudi Arabia, even Iran, the IDF is praised for its ability to quickly mobilize its reserve personnel on short notice. Now it's time to look at their air power. So how do these stats look? Their total aircraft sit at 595. They have 253 fighters. They have 146 total helicopters, 18 transport aircrafts as well. When it comes to the land strength of their army specifically, they have 2,760 combat tanks, 6,541 armored fighting vehicles. They have 650 self-propelled artillery. They also got 150 rocket projectors, and their towed artillery sit at 300. Now let's take a quick look at the Navy, see how the stats look for it. They have 65 total naval assets. They got 3 corvettes and 6 submarines. And for the final fact, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institution, Israel's defense budget in 2018 was $15.9 billion US. Now some sources say that number rose to $19.6 billion in 2019. Now with a total population of 8.5 million people, Israel devotes a considerable portion of their GDP towards their defense budget. Again, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, that percentage was at 4.3% of its GDP in the year 2018. Israel also spends far more on defense than any other Middle Eastern country, even more than Turkey and Iran. However, more money for defense means less for other needs of the nation, such as healthcare as well as just general infrastructure. In recent years though, Israel's defense spending has been growing, and it's increasing about 4 billion Israeli shekels every single year, which works out to be about $1.16 billion US. Starting at number 10, we have the Hadid sisters, Bella and Gigi Hadid. Palestinian American models Bella and Gigi Hadid have been among the most vocal, high-profile celebrities when it comes to voicing support for Palestine. Bella has posted on her Instagram feed and also on her Instagram story on a daily basis over the past week, and she's been sharing videos. Also, she's been sharing tweets and infographics. Now, one of them, and I quote, "One cannot advocate for the racial equality, LGBT, and women's rights, condemn corrupt and abusive regimes and other injustices, yet choose to ignore the Palestinian oppression. It does not add up. You cannot pick and choose whose human rights matter more." And now this is what both of them actually posted on their Instagram feeds. Now, next up at number 9, we have Mark Ruffalo. One of the most significant contributions in supporting Palestine has come from Hollywood actor Mark Ruffalo, who shared a petition calling for international leaders to impose sanctions on important Israeli industries until Palestinians are granted full and equal civil rights. And I quote, "The petition has received over 1.7 million signatures at the time of filming this video." Mark Ruffalo tweeted in a widely shared tweet, and this is what he had to say. 1,500 Palestinians face expulsion in Jerusalem. 200 protesters have been injured. 9 children have been killed. Sanctions on South Africa help free its black people. It's time for sanctions on Israel to free Palestinians. Join the call. The celebrity at number 8 is Lauren Jauregui. Lauren Jauregui is a singer and also a former member of the girl group Fifth Harmony, and she has been a big supporter of Palestinians in the past and also recently. So check this. Back in 2018, she posted this tweet, "Sending prayers and light to the innocent tortured souls of Gaza. The world should be ashamed that we turn our backs on genocide and would rather point fingers at each other to evade responsibility. The children are being bombed and we're all still silent. I'd say we're all responsible." And also, in continuing her support for Palestine, she had tweeted this recently, "Sending love to all who celebrate Eid Mubarak. My heart is with all those who are hurting in what is supposed to be a time of joy and completion, especially those in Gaza." Continuing now, celebrity at number 7 is Will Poulter. British actor Will Poulter, known for The Maze Runner and also Black Mirror Bandersnatch, also spoke out on Twitter, and he said the following, and I quote, "The UK government must condemn the atrocious violence and forced evictions against the Palestinians living in Sheikh Jarrah. Will the UK government condemn these appalling attacks, which have resulted in the death of multiple civilians, including children?" Number 6 brings us one of my favorite actresses, Viola Davis. Oscar-winning actress Viola Davis, she joins a list of celebrities in support for Palestine. She has become a powerhouse in Hollywood with millions of followers, and she posted this. "Let's talk about what's going on in Sheikh Jarrah." And with that, she also included 10 images explaining the context of the potential evictions of Palestinians. Now, Viola Davis, she particularly received praise for posting to her main feed and not to her story, which, if you didn't know, on Instagram deletes after 24 hours. At number 5, we have John Oliver. Comedian John Oliver has made a career by addressing various different controversial issues, and he does it in a very lighthearted, comedic way. Now, during his HBO series Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, he spoke out on the ongoing issue between Israel and the Palestinians. He pointed out that one side is suffering much more and went on to even say that Israel has committed war crimes. Switching gears now to look at some YouTube celebrities. At number 4, we have Ethan Klein. Ethan Klein and his wife Hila Klein, they are a very popular YouTube duo who run the popular channel H3H3. Ethan Klein and his wife are Israeli, but in a post he said, "The Israeli government is making me sick. Even if Hamas is operating out of a civilian building, it doesn't justify the total destruction of that building. It's inhumane. As a dual citizen, I love Israel and the Israeli people. They deserve a government that actually believes in peace, not force and violence. Gazans deserve to live in a life free of fear." The next YouTube celebrity on this list is Philip DeFranco. He's a mega popular and also OG YouTuber. He got a lot of respect for covering the Palestinian-Israeli issue in one of his episodes. In one of his statements in that particular episode in support of Palestine, this is what Phil had to say. "One side has killed significantly more civilians and children, and one side specifically targeted a building that housed the news organizations and has not provided proof as to the reason why they were destroyed. One side has been kicking people out of their family homes that they've had for decades, and one side is memeing the absolute devastation and destruction and death that it's been bringing." We're coming down to the bottom of this episode. Number 2 leads us to Roger Waters. Roger Waters is a songwriter and ex-Pink Floyd band member, and he spoke against Israel, calling it an apartheid state over the forced evictions of the Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah, which he said is breaking his heart in a video he tweeted out on May 6th. He also called out US President Joe Biden over his support for Israel. He said this, and I quote, "How would you like it, Joe Biden? You're sitting at home. That's where your family lived for hundreds of years. Then some comes along and goes, 'That's ours. I'm a settler. I'm going to take your house from you.'" And finally, we end this episode off with Trevor Noah. Comedian and TV host Trevor Noah, he spoke out about the Israeli and Palestinian issue on The Daily Show, highlighting the military might of Israel and questioning the responsibility it has for having that power. He said this, and I quote, "I just want to ask an honest question here. If you are in a fight where the other person cannot beat you, how hard should you retaliate when they try to hurt you? Everyone has a different answer to the question, and I'm not trying to answer the question, nor do I think I'm smart enough to solve it. All I ask is, when you have this much power, what's your responsibility?" Starting at number 10, we have Zayn Malik. He was a fan favorite from part 1. We didn't feature him in that list, so we had to feature him in part 2. Either way, within just minutes of being posted, there was a tweet by Zayn Malik that went viral. Zayn Malik tweeted this, and I quote, "I stand with the Palestinian people. My heart aches for the families who have lost loved ones. We cannot stand as silent witnesses to children being orphaned and murdered and not demand for the human rights of all Palestinians. This must end. Free Palestine." And you see, this tweet, it actually sparked a lot of angry response from fans in Israel, and some fans were suggesting that he would lose his entire fan base in the country of Israel. Next up at number 9, we have Mohamed Salah. After receiving a lot of backlash from the Arab world for not speaking up earlier, footballer Mohamed Salah tweeted this on May 11th. It was a photo of him in front of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then another tweet in the exact same day that said this: "I'm calling on all the world leaders, including the Prime Minister of the country that has been my home for the past 4 years, to do everything in their power to make sure the violence and killing of innocent people stops immediately. Enough is enough." Michael Malarkey is next. He's a star from the Vampire Diaries. Well, he actually has some Palestinian roots from his mother's side, and he defended Palestine in a tweet saying, "Hate crimes are hate crimes, plain and simple. The Palestinians as an entire people have long been wronged and brutalized for 70 years, while the world turns a blind eye. I'm referring to the merciless fury with which Israeli army appears to be attacking a defenseless Palestinian people in Gaza, destroying their homes, infrastructure, and resources, right under our noses, funded and defended by the US. Know the whole story. Stay in the arena. The next celebrity at number 7 is Dua Lipa. The British singer took to her Instagram stories to share a tweet from the US Senator Bernie Sanders, who faulted the actions of Israeli extremists for inflating the tensions between Israel and Palestine. Also, she shared another story joining the hashtag Save Sheikh Jarrah. And she did this because she was highlighting the events taking place in the occupied East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. Susan Sarandon, who's an American actress and activist, she's tweeted many times in support of Palestine. So this one didn't come as a surprise. In one of her tweets, she said this: standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people who are facing ethnic cleansing and being terrorized at the hands of the Israeli government and Jewish settler organizations. And then she ended the tweet in all caps saying, "The world is watching." The celebrity at number 5 is Swara Bhaskar. Well, if you're not familiar, Swara Bhaskar is a Bollywood actor who is always vocal on her social media platforms on social and political issues that are happening in her country. But this time, she took a stand for Palestine, and she tweeted this: "The cause of the hashtag Palestine and justice for Palestinians isn't an Islamic cause. At least it shouldn't solely be that. It is first and foremost an anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, and anti-apartheid cause. And that's why it should concern us all, even non-Muslims. Hashtag Free Palestine, hashtag Al-Aqsa." The celebrity at number 4 is Dylan O'Brien. Dylan Rhodes O'Brien is an American actor, and he's actually famous for his role on the MTV Supernatural drama series Teen Wolf. And on May 15th of this year, Dylan retweeted a video showing a girl from Palestine and wrote this: 10 years old, heart-wrenching, hashtag Free Palestine.
I'm always sick, I don't know. I can't do anything. All of this. What do you expect me to do? Fix it? I'm only 10. I can't even do anything this morning. I just want to be a doctor or anything to help my people, but I can't. I'm just a kid. I don't even know what to do. I get scared, but not really that much. I do anything for my people, but I don't know what to do. I'm just 10. I'm just 10. All of this, when I see...
Number 3 brings us to John Cusack. Since the Sheikh Jarrah crisis broke out in Palestine, John Cusack has made it clear that he is supporting Palestine. The American actor has used his social media platforms to shed light on attacks on Palestinians and also crimes committed by Israeli soldiers. And then on Instagram, John Cusack, he shared history snippets showing Palestinian land loss since 1947 up till present day. And also he tweeted this, and I quote, "Black Lives Matter means Palestinian lives matter, means Jewish lives matter, means Muslims lives matter, means keep going till there is no more group, race, religion excluded. Then speak of justice. Justice is always in solidarity with powerless against the barbarity of power." The celebrity at number 2 is Mahira Khan. Speaking about the Israeli-Palestine issue, popular Pakistani actor Mahira Khan, she retweeted a video and wrote this: "Heartbreaking, barbaric attacks. Even worse, those who remain silent. Hashtag Palestinian Lives Matter." And then she also wrote this in another tweet: "Call it out. Call it what it is. Terrorism. Hashtag Palestinian Lives Matter." And finally, at number 1, this one came as a big surprise to many people. Mia Khalifa. She has a wide reach on social media, and she often uses her platform to let her thoughts be known to the rest of the world. And then she went on both Twitter and Instagram to condemn the violence that is going on in Palestine. And in one of her recent tweets, she had tweeted this: "All I see are war crimes against humanity that the United States is funding with an annual $3.8 billion. Hashtag Free Palestine." And that tweet actually was made along with pictures showing injustices in Palestine. And more recently, Mia Khalifa had sided with Bella Hadid after there had been rumors that were sparked saying that Bella Hadid lost a contract with the fashion brand Dior because of her support for Palestine. So in a tweet, Mia Khalifa said this: "If Bella Hadid lost a Dior contract for supporting Palestine and standing against apartheid, then Dior can go burn in Marshall."